Good afternoon to you. Mark Sett with HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It is Sunday, October 30th, 2022. Glad you could tune in. We've got to talk about this new depression that does appear to be forming in the Caribbean Sea. Invest area 95L. Looks like it could impact Jamaica, and maybe the Cayman Islands, and eventually Central America as we get through the upcoming week. All right, let's get on with it. I'll show you what we've got out there. National Hurricane Center homepage, always a good starting point. Don't want to just ignore this feature. 0% chance of development. We were watching that over the last several days. Now it's merging with a frontal system. Upper level winds too strong, and it's a non-issue overall. Certainly not going to be a tropical or a subtropical cyclone. Certainly a large weather disturbance. I won't say a non-issue. Maybe that was a little bit overdone, but it's not going to be a tropical or subtropical storm. Still could create some squally weather up there in the vicinity of Bermuda. Now our next system down here, we've been watching this as well. And you remember earlier in the week it looked like it could develop, and then the models kind of backed off. Well, now stuff's back again, suggesting that this does go on to develop into our next named storm. And in fact, it's already producing, according to aircraft data, 35 to 40 mile per hour winds to the north of the center, and any additional increase in organization with the overall shower and thunderstorm activity could prompt the development of a storm, a depression or a storm over the next day or two, and they might even begin issuing PTC advisories, as this could be one of those, as we call it, potential tropical cyclones, where they can put watches and warnings up even though it is not technically or officially or whatever you want to call it a named storm. So we'll watch this closely. We'll talk about it as we go forward in the rest of today's update. Satellite animation, a few things of interest out here. There's 95L. This is that system with 0% probability of development. It's along this front up here now. And then that's that mid-latitude storm that created the severe weather over parts of the central Gulf Coast yesterday. Did you guys see that? Tornadoes on I-10 down there getting picked up on the Moss Point MDOT Mississippi DOT cams. There was a tornado in the Silver Hill and Mobile area. Quite an active day. That's a mid-latitude storm coming out of the lower 48, clashing with the air masses. You got dry air on one side, moist, unstable air on the other side, with a lot of dynamics involved. Whereas down in the Caribbean, this is your developing tropical cyclone, where it's more bundled instead of got that and not having that comma shape to it. This is going to bundle more. And this is just kind of a little quick meteorology lesson for you. And then this system is sort of in between, or it was. Now it's starting to merge with the front out there. So you have three different weather features. I think that's just kind of interesting to point out here. But the one of I think most interest is our system in the Caribbean, Invest 95L. And we can see that on the vorticity signature here. Kind of elongated still, and we talk about it bundling. It's getting there. The concentrated area seems to be up here on the eastern and northeastern side. Yes, this is pretty concentrated, but it's all part of this overall frontal boundary. It's attached to that front, so it's non-tropical in nature. And then there's the signature for our mid-latitude storm and all of that energy that brought the tornadoes yesterday to parts of the central Gulf Coast. Again, I talked about this dashboard a lot during Fiona and Ian, especially. I really like it, from Dr. Cowan and Tropical Tidbits. That's the low pressure area on the analysis, the surface plot. And just to give you an idea of some of the model guidance, here's your track guidance here. Pretty tightly clustered into Belize, it looks like, over the next 3 to 4 days or so. The north side of this energy area, the envelope south of the area where it could affect people. I mean, remember, these systems are not lines or dots. That's just your track center, if you will. So yes, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, you could get some inclement weather, some squally weather from this feature as it goes on by. So that's something to keep in mind. No threat at all of this getting into the Gulf of Mexico. Why? Because a pretty good area of high pressure will be prevalent, and I'm just kind of drawing this in here for simplistic purposes. Big high pressure area over the eastern and southeastern United States, ridging its way into the Gulf of Mexico. Denser air than our system is, and so the potential tropical cyclone that could develop, and that might be what they call it, of course, before it becomes a depression or Lisa, won't be able to move into that. So we're pretty good here in the Gulf Coast region. I know a lot of people still very much on edge along the coast of Florida, and rightfully so. Water temperatures will not be a hindrance for this feature to develop further. In fact, it won't surprise me if this becomes a hurricane. I'll be honest with you. I've been looking at some of the guidance here and the way everything is setting up. I think it's going to find this sweet spot coming through the Caribbean, and I would give it at least a 60% chance myself, personally, that this becomes a hurricane. It wouldn't surprise me that it is a climatologically favored area. We normally would see our hurricanes develop there this time of year. Water temperatures are warm, yes, and added to that, they are warmer than the long-term average. Let's take that away and redraw it. Going through this area, water temperature is not only warmer than average by about 1 degree Celsius, so there's extra latent heat down there waiting to be tapped from this system, so it won't shock me at all if this becomes at least a Category 1 hurricane. And you folks, especially in Belize, Honduras there, need to be watching this closely, and we'll talk about it a lot more, of course, in tomorrow's update with the hurricane outlook and discussion tomorrow afternoon. All right, model guidance. Well, this is the GFS from the 12Z run earlier today. There it is in the Caribbean, still kind of elongated, but look, even in the model, it sort of has that yin-yang look to it, right? Or sometimes we call it an S shape right there. And when you see that, especially even in the model, that's a pretty good sign of health for the system that is trying to develop. So it goes on along here. This is the 5,000 foot level of the atmosphere. GFS develops it, concentrates it there, and then moves the whole system towards Central America, maybe going south of west. And there's that big old area of high pressure that will keep it from being able to get into the Gulf. If this wasn't here, we had a big trough dipping down, this could turn and make its way into the Gulf, but that is not going to happen. Very, very clear on that. This is going to be sitting here, almost no doubt. That's a huge weather feature in the atmosphere, and the model isn't going to just be wrong about that, even at 4 days out, to the extent of where it is and exactly how it sets up. Well, that determines where this would make landfall, but in terms of it being able to turn and get into the Gulf, again, big X there, never going to happen. Not with this system. We don't have to worry about that, at least. So it gets on into Central America there. It looks like Belize, potentially, and then it dies out over Guatemala. And, of course, you know what I'm going to say? Let's draw this in with some blue. The threat of heavy rain through here could be pretty substantial, even post-landfall. So we have to keep that in mind as well, even after landfall down there. We'll be watching this very closely. Euro pretty much agrees. Finally, the two models coming into agreement here, and that gives us pretty good confidence, us being those that watch this stuff, the forecasters, everybody that really tunes into this. When you see that kind of agreement there between the GFS and the Euro, back this up a little bit, they are very similar. Even at the time frames, that's day 4. That's day 4, not far off and pretty close to each other in intensity as well. So, again, folks in Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and certainly Belize and Honduras need to be watching this very closely. I'm down. Like I said, put me down. I think it's going to become a hurricane eventually. I might as well just put my flag in and say, yes, that's what I'm going with. I think it becomes a hurricane and moves across the Caribbean there. Again, a climatologically favored area. The setup looks favorable. So I think people should be thinking about a hurricane later in the week for parts of the Central American region. All right, we'll take a look at this, of course, tomorrow in the hurricane outlook and discussion, if I can say it. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll have a whole new suite of data coming in. Recon will be out there checking this out, and we shall see what happens going forward. All right? All right. Have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll be back with you tomorrow. Again, I am Mark Sudduth. Hurricane Track, that's us. I'll talk to you again some more tomorrow afternoon.